Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Scheitlinghausen. It is August 6th. Today's top news at this moment. The armed forces of Ukraine struck a huge strategic oil refinery, Slavneft Yanos, located in Yaroslavl. This refinery is one of the largest in Russia. It is among the top 5 refineries in terms of capacity. Its design capacity is about 15 million tons of oil per year. It's just a huge refinery. And this refinery supplies fuel to the Yaroslavl, Moscow, Ivanovo, Kostroma, Vologda, Tver, and other regions. Moreover, fuel is supplied from there to the Moscow industrial region via railway and pipeline infrastructure. In other words, any disruptions in the operation of this plant affect not only the Yaroslavl region, but also the fuel supply for Moscow and a significant part of the Central Federal District. But the local governor came out and stated that in his world all the drones had been shot down. Let me quote the local governor, Mikhail Yevrayev. Today, our region repelled the most massive attack by enemy UAVs. All 88 drones were neutralized by electronic warfare and air defense forces. And first of all, how did all 88 of them even get there? Well, and secondly, he later added that the debris from these drones did in fact hit several storage tanks. And that's how it happened. It's truly amazing. The fire and smoke can be seen from tens of kilometers away. Residents of nearby houses posted a bunch of videos, for which special thanks to them, while these guys stubbornly deny reality. Well, I understand the purpose of the governor's statement, so that later on TV news, those who can't see this fire out their window are told that everything was shot down and everything is fine. I mean, this is pure Orwellian stuff. By the way, why don't they deny that Wildberries warehouses are burning in Russia in the same way? Well, it would actually be logical for some local governor to come out and say, everything was shot down, all the warehouses are intact, and everything is fine. These Ukrainian drones are completely incapable of anything. They could do that because then they would have to refund either the money or the goods to Russians. But when it comes to returning something to Russians, then they admit everything. They admit the fires and they call them fires instead of just smoke. And they'll even call the POPs explosions. But that's not all. The unmanned systems forces of Ukraine hit another huge oil refinery today, the Bashneft Novoil plant. This is one of the oil refineries in the Ufa group of refineries. It is located in the city of Ufa, Republic of Bashkortostan. Its design capacity is about 7 million tons of oil per year, also a massive beast. So, Bashneft Novoil is one of the 3 refineries that make up this Ufa group. The entire Ufa cluster has a refining capacity of 24 million tons of oil per year. And you know what's important? This Ufa oil refining hub, which consists of 3 refineries, is one of the key centers for the production of motor and aviation fuel. So what's interesting is that just a few days after the beginning of this month, 3 refineries in this cluster were attacked at once. On August 1st, Bashneft Ufa Neftekim got hit. On August 5th, Bashneft UMPZ was struck, and on August 6th, it was Bashneft Novoil. This is almost 1,500 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. And another piece of good news has emerged about an explosion at the anniversary celebration of the head of the Aerospace Forces, General Chaiko. So General Chaiko himself still hasn't made contact, but the name of another Russian general has become known, who was secretly buried in Moscow after the explosion at the Balzy Rossi restaurant. According to sources, this is 53-year-old Lieutenant General Igor Yaroslavl. The farewell ceremony for him did not take place in a public funeral hall because they wanted to keep it hidden, but in his apartment, after which the general was buried at the Trokurovskoye cemetery. Yaroslavl held the position of First Deputy Chief of Staff of the Moscow Military District. He happened to be there in the restaurant at the moment of the celebration when the explosion occurred. But that is not all. Now I will tell you about another general. In the meantime, let me remind you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It is important for the channel's promotion. You can do it right now, without delay. We are fighting against Putin's propaganda, and together we will be able to do it much more effectively. And I'll also remind you that for everyone who subscribes, their hair becomes soft and silky, so go ahead and subscribe. Another major general died that day. His first and last name are being verified. He too, apparently, was one of the guests at this anniversary celebration. Let me remind you, according to the Russian Foreign Ministry, the explosion at the Italian restaurant in Moscow was intended to intimidate the Italian chef. That is the version from the Russian Foreign Ministry. This is not a joke. That is, they put forward this version to hide the information that the military and FSB elite had gathered in this elite restaurant. And apparently, we will continue to find out about those who were sent to hell. Meanwhile, friends, there is incredible heat in Ukraine. I think many have noticed. Today I wanted to draw attention to this. In what sense? That there are no mass power outages in Ukraine. I want to say a huge thank you to our energy workers who, despite the unceasing Russian strikes, are redistributing the load and doing everything possible to keep the power system running, often risking their own lives. After all, the degenerates, I remind you, have repeatedly launched follow-up strikes precisely when our emergency crews were already working on the scene. Thank you to the Ukrainian energy workers for their difficult work. Well, here are the first truly serious consequences for the Russian budget. Saving Wildberries may require up to 1.5 trillion rubles, and the Kremlin will have to find this money somewhere. The Ukrainian campaign of strikes on Wildberries warehouses, which I remind you has already resulted in the complete burning down of 13 of these logistics hubs, has simply collapsed the business model of this largest Russian marketplace, which annually sold goods amounting to 3% of the national GDP. So, in order to prevent the financial collapse and bankruptcy of Wildberries, it is most likely that the state will be the one to save the company. The total need for money for Wildberries, as follows from estimates, could reach 1.5 trillion rubles. And that is only at this moment. I think that no one has any doubts about the fact that more Wildberries warehouses will burn, and not just Wildberries. There is a feeling that Ukraine is preparing many more unpleasant surprises for that Botox-filled pest and his team of senile old men who think they can fight forever. War is money. Ukraine is striking at the military budget. Ukraine is, in general, performing an absolutely incredible feat. In every episode, we have an important fundraiser for the defense forces of Ukraine. Today, we are starting a major fundraiser together with the patronage service of the 3rd Army Corps, together with the patronage service Angels of the 3rd. The fundraiser is for the treatment and rehabilitation of severely wounded soldiers with neurotrauma. Please watch this video.
Мій позивний Рута, і я медичний куратор патронатної служби Янголи Трійки. Ми збираємо кошти на лікування та реабілітацію важко поранених бійців з нейротравмами. Ціль – 1 мільйон гривень. Ці хлопці вже віддали своє здоров'я, захищаючи нас. Зараз вони щодня борються за те, щоб знову ходити, говорити і жити. І кожна гривня – це реальний шанс повернути їм життя. Долучайтеся до збору.
Let's help our defenders who gave their health for our country. The link to the fundraiser is in the description, and the QR code in the corner is for those watching me on other channels. It also leads to the fundraiser. Thank you all so much for helping Ukraine, for helping our defenders. The Ukrainian ballistic missile FP7 is already undergoing the codification procedure at the Ministry of Defense. This will take 2 to 4 weeks, but the first combat deployment should also take place in the near future. Reuters reports this. And after the missile passes codification, it will be officially adopted into service. The range of this missile, I remind you, is 300 kilometers and the warhead is 150 kilograms, while a significantly larger ballistic missile, the FP9, is scheduled to be launched by the middle of autumn. The range of this missile is 850 kilometers. That is just for Moscow, and its warhead is also very serious, 800 kilograms. And here is some news that is just on topic. The US has expanded intelligence sharing with Ukraine for strikes on the energy infrastructure of the Russian Federation. If after Trump's return to the White House, Washington even stopped sharing information with Kyiv for a short time, remember they stopped intelligence sharing, then now they have resumed it in the previous volumes. This is good news, especially in connection with the previous news. We would really need to reach the Russian ballistic missile launches, key military factories, and oil refineries as well. That's it, Medvedev. Cross Donald Trump out of the history books. Medvedev, by the way, has disappeared somewhere. Have you noticed? Remember, he used to post something about oinking piglets at least every 2 days. But in general, of course, Medvedev is like a pure villain from a puppet theater. You can still use him to scare children, but adults just find him laughable. You know, when he appears in that tunic of his from a children's store with a burgundy face, you just physically feel how unwell he is, how his liver is shaking after yesterday's hangover. I think that before his speeches, they still put him on an IV drip so he can at least stay on his feet for half an hour. And then he rushes, of course, to the nearest buffet, a shot of cognac, a sandwich with some stale sprats, and that's it. Nobody sees Medvedev until Monday. Another missing person has turned up here. In Russia, there have been calls to bring back the death penalty. Do you know who called for it? The commander of the Akhmat Special Forces, Alaudinov. We haven't heard anything about him for a long time. It's unclear where he is, but now he's resurfaced. In his opinion, this measure is necessary for the duration of the tribunal. What tribunal? Let me quote this genius of thought. We must reinstate the death penalty for them on the territory of the Russian Federation so that we can give them what they deserve. Well, he thinks everyone knows. We for them, they for them. Who decided to remind everyone of themselves in this way? Do you know why they are in no hurry to bring back the death penalty in Russia? Because there is a very high probability that you will be the first one to be executed after a coup. Well, and here's another wonderful quote from this Alaudinov. He was asked whether it was necessary for some foreign observers to be present at these executions, which haven't been brought back yet, but which he intends to bring back. Here is what he replied. Let them come and watch how those who came to us with a sword will be punished. Who came to Russia with a sword? Who attacked your state? Let's ask one more question into this void. Who was sitting at the table in February 2022 and said the following words, I have made the decision to launch a special military operation? Who is this bald-headed scum? Well, you know, I'm making a mistake here again. I am appealing to the reason of those who have no reason. When I hear things like, we'll show those who attacked Russia, I immediately remember the first days and weeks after the full-scale invasion, when for some reason all sorts of degenerate acquaintances started calling and saying, wait, you'll be liberated soon. Did you notice how they all, as if on cue, like they were let off the leash, started calling? At first, I didn't understand what kind of mass glitch had occurred with them. I mean, we didn't ask to be liberated, but they were calling and saying, just hang in there, it's happening now. They didn't even know themselves that there would be a war. So it was a surprise for them too. At the beginning, in the first few days, they even claimed that we were bombing ourselves. But then it became clear that they were all told to go to hell, pardon my French, blocked, cursed, and I learned a very valuable lesson, that you shouldn't waste a single second on idiots. Better to dedicate that time to worthy people, to good people. And despite the fact that Putin has a maximally obedient herd, well, he didn't get lucky with everyone, it's true, but he got lucky with the majority. They are still afraid of their own people in Russia. Just today, there is a global outage on the internet. Many services have gone down across practically the entire territory of the Russian Federation. I think they are practicing a shutdown for the moment of or immediately after the elections that are supposed to take place there. Well, we'll see. There is that feeling. Another simply wonderful piece of news. More than 41,000 participants of the Russian-Ukrainian war and their children have enrolled in Russian universities this year. This is what the Minister of Science is reporting. A total of 117,000 were enrolled in Russian universities, of which the share of special military operation participants and their children amounted to 35%. The most interesting thing is that you can't even kick them out. That is, in theory, after the first year, about 90% of these quota students, the children of special military operation participants and the participants themselves, should be expelled. But you can't, they are the children of heroes after all. They will drag these talents along all the way until they get their diplomas. Why don't you just hand out diplomas by quota right there and be done with it? Why waste time on them? You know, the fact that Putin has decided to kill education in Russia as well is actually a big plus, because in the place of these special military operation larvae, there could have been truly gifted children who might have gone on to develop some kind of military garbage. But this way, let these ones study. They definitely won't invent anything. And you know, if Putin were quietly ruining the Russian Federation inside his own country, there wouldn't even be any questions. We wouldn't even be talking about this Russian Federation. We would have just built fences like this on the border, and that would be it. But this Botox-filled piece of trash came crawling over here. But the biggest mistake of his quarter century of rule was that he made a move on Ukraine. He won't just break his teeth, Ukraine will put him in a coffin and nail it shut. Well, and you friends, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones. Subscribe to this channel, don't forget. And let's help our defenders with our very important fundraiser. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.